Tensions between Russia and the West are growing rapidly. A Russian military buildup is visible on the ground and from the air. In 2014, Russia took military action in Ukraine, and concerns are again running high.
It is the right time to remind the whole world that Ukraine has been living under the threat of invasion, and for some parts for Ukraine, real invasion and occupation for the past 8 years. But this time it really feels different.
It feels different to Western countries too. They gathered in Geneva and issued this warning.
First, we've been very clear that if there is any further Russian aggression in terms of sending Russian forces into Ukraine, there will be a swift, there will be a severe, and there will be a united response.
But tension between the West and Russia isn't new, nor is Russian pressure on Ukraine. So why is this escalation happening? Well, here are 6 reasons, 3 short-term, 3 long-term. First of all, Ukraine became independent in 1991 after the collapse of the Soviet Union. But Vladimir Putin still sees deep cultural and political ties. Last year he wrote, "I said that Russians and Ukrainians were one people, a single whole." And as Ukraine's relationship with the West has deepened, so is Putin's determination to stop this from happening. Here's the BBC's Steve Rosenberg.
Some people here believe that Mr. Putin sees himself as a leader on an historic mission to try to bring Ukraine back into Russia's orbit, and not only to do that, but to re-establish for Moscow a sphere of influence in this part of the world.
Our second reason is what happened in 2014. Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine and supported separatists in the east. And for some there, this was welcome.
Recognition is very important for our republic. We fought for this. We spilled our blood for this. The end goal is to be part of the Russian Federation.
Russia denies that's the end goal, but its support for separatists is real, and it was hit with a range of Western sanctions because of 2014. And there's been a military consequence too. Ukraine's army is now almost twice as big as it was in 2014. Third, well, we need to look at NATO's expansion. NATO is a military alliance dominated by the US, but with most members in Europe. This map on the NATO website shows us Russia in the east, and light blue coloured countries are all NATO members. Some of them are former members of the Soviet Union, something Putin says is a broken promise.
We won't move 1 inch towards the east, they told us in the 1990s. And what happened? They deceived us. They brazenly tricked us.
The West categorically denies this, but Russia remains infuriated, not least when Ukraine takes part in joint military exercises with NATO, or when the European Union says things like this.
And as ever, the European Union stands by Ukraine in these difficult circumstances. We are very firm in our resolve.
Russia wants NATO to pull back. NATO says it won't. And if those are 3 longer-term reasons, here are 3 reasons why this has escalated recently, starting with Putin's view of attitudes in Ukraine. This poll is from September last year, showing 81% of Ukrainians saying they have a negative attitude about Putin. Or there's this statement from Ukraine's president.
We have everyone's full and permanent support by Ukraine's international partners, by Europe and the United States in particular.
Ukraine is still getting closer to the West despite Putin's efforts. He may have concluded a different tactic is needed, which leads us to our next reason, the state of the West. Bruno Massais is of the Hudson Institute, and he's tweeted, "I think 2 developments shaped Putin's decision to intensify the conflict, the Afghanistan debacle and Merkel's departure." Some argue America's unilateral withdrawal from Afghanistan demonstrated a lack of Western unity. This former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Trump argues whatever happened in Afghanistan had a ripple effect with Ukraine. Russia will think this is my time. America's weak. It's disorganized. Now, of course, Joe Biden wouldn't agree with that. But the West didn't act as one in Afghanistan, nor is it doing so in Ukraine. The US is sending military hardware to Ukraine. Germany isn't.
Germany has not supported the export of lethal weapons in recent years.
As well as this, the head of the German Navy resigned after saying giving Putin respect is low cost, even no cost. It's easy to give him the respect he demands and probably deserves. Putin may see these differences as an opportunity, though the West insists it is not. What is beyond dispute is our final reason, what everyone can see with their own eyes, this enormous Russian troop buildup on the border with Ukraine. This is the immediate reason for the escalation, because as the Russians build up, so now does the West. The US has given Ukraine what it calls 90 tons of lethal aid. The UK is also sending equipment, and it's been noted.
Our Western associates are escalating the situation by supplying Kiev with lethal modern weapons, conducting provocative military manoeuvres in the Black Sea and in other regions near our borders.
For years, the two worldviews of the West and Russia have clashed. Now that risks taking on a military dimension. Both argue the other is wrong, both argue the other must give ground, and Ukraine has become the issue on which to test the strength of their arguments and their military.